Welcome to Cherry Hive Facebook Live. Hello, wherever you are. Greetings of the day. I know we get a lot of people in Australia looking at this, but you know what? If you're in Canada or America or in the UK, staying up very, very late, welcome to you all, welcome to Cherry Hive Facebook Live. If you don't know what Cherry Hive Facebook Live is, let me just explain a little bit more to you. So I started this group, Cherry Hive, Blossoming Confidence for Business Women, a few weeks ago. And I had this crazy idea to learn how to use Facebook Live. And then at first I didn't know really what I was going to do with it. But then I started meeting a whole bunch of very talented and inspirational people, particularly women, of course, because that's what Cherry Hive Facebook Live is about. Started to get some inspiration to, everyone's got a journey that a journey that they've been on, or a story to tell. So it's not like you just, came down from wherever and landed doing what you do. It kind of materialized from somewhere. And that got me interested. I was only kind of interested at first, but now I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated how people get to where they are and that journey that they've taken to get there. It really does inspire me. I've been in business a long time, but I still get inspired by every single person that I interview on here or I talk to in the group. So if you're a business lady and you want to come and learn a few things about how to leverage your business more, or just get inspiration and courage, some kind of, something to help you be better at your business, then come along and share some things in the group. I guess to summarize, the 5 things that we look at in the group are things like tips, tools, techniques, technologies, and talent. Now, today's guest has got a lot of talent. She's gone from burnout business owner to living life her way. She's an inspiration to us all. She's going to share her journey, some of her journey today. And then what she did was she learned from her experiences to basically develop a tool, a technique that now empowers other women who need to kind of deal with life in a better way. So she's going to be talking today to us about her empathic leadership technique, which she developed from her experiences of burnout. As always, please come on the group, share your ideas. If you do know my guest today, which I'll introduce in a second, please share your stories, ask questions, make comments, just say hello, tell us where you are in the world, just so that we know that we're sharing something inspirational with you too. So I'm going to introduce my guest today. My guest is Liana Allison. She lives over here where I do, not far up north in Bundaberg. And it's very cold up there at the moment, I hear. So hopefully she's nice and warm in her studio. So yes, come on in. Welcome, Liana Allison. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Karen. And thank you for having me. And hello to all the listeners and watchers.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to get some interested watchers today. I think we've already got somebody viewing in, but it takes a little time sometimes for people to come on in. So in the meantime, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us kind of a little bit about what you do and where you've got to and what brought you there.
Sure. Hello. I think the bandwidth is probably just a little bit slow this morning, so I hope you can hear me. So basically, I'm Liana Allison. I'm an empathic leadership coach, and I developed the Institute of Empathic Leadership to help women who have the deep feelings and emotions, and they get overwhelmed by them and don't know really what to do with them in a way that's really constructive. The traditional way is very much about pushing away emotions, which is what I used to do, and not really getting the full use of them. And I'll talk more about that later, but the actual emotions themselves are fantastic tools, and I help women actually grab those tools, use them, and actually empower themselves through that. So that's the gist of what I do. And how I started was I actually grew up on a sheep and cattle station in the middle of South Australia. Wow. Which was a very, very different environment to grow up in, but fantastic for an empath, which is what I am, because there was only a very few people and a lot of animals, and so it was fairly easy to actually just feel good in that environment. I learned very quickly in going to boarding school at the age of 12. I was at boarding school for 6 years, that it was quite different in let's call it a normal environment where there was lots of people. And that was probably the start of where I learnt to put up a lot of protection mechanisms and shut myself down on a feeling level just to feel safe. Sure. And that continued on through my life very unconsciously. I thought I was being great. Like, I thought I was being strong and resilient and all of those things, which I was to a certain degree, but it wasn't actually serving the real part of me that really wanted to be able to flow more.
Sure.
So, life went on. I got married and had a couple of children. I've got 2 boys, Ben and Sam. Well, they're men now, so I remember that. And I started a business in Victoria at the time in tourism, and it was a very full-on business in regards to it was 7 days a week. It was a business that needed to be improved and built up and expanded to make it a viable business. So there was a lot of work involved. And we were there for probably about 4 years, and that really sort of made me realize that I wasn't feeling great inside. I started to get very emotional outbursts, and to me that was very scary, because I used to always control my emotions, and if emotions were going to come up, it would be done in an environment where there was no one else around. So the actual learning curve for me was I went looking for help, and I was very lucky, or it was just bound to be, that I found a GP who was an alternative practitioner as well. So sent me down the line of energy healing and a little bit more internal work, rather than going down the psychology side of things. Which that journey kept going for probably another 4 years. And in the meantime, we'd sold that business and moved into another large business, which gave me a little bit more time, because it was a bigger business, more employees and things. But it didn't change how I did things. So it was that journey in those 4 years that actually made me realize that I was really, really good at business. And my mind was really strong and practical, and I could get things done. And I took that business right through to being like the first ecotourism houseboat business in the world, which, it was a huge thing for me to do. And the whole time I was just petrified, absolutely petrified the whole time. My insecurity was just huge. So it was very interesting in regards to when we decided to move on from that business. I moved into straight away the holistic side of business. And because of my business background, I actually made it a business straight up. So I started a centre, and I did remedial massage and taught meditation and all of those different things. And I was very lucky to have a fantastic mentor. So that kicked me into the wellness industry, because, learning about it actually was my healing. So I learned and I healed, and I learned and I healed, and I learned and I healed. And I just have collected so many different modalities over the last 15 years that now I've come to that point where I can see the big picture of where people are at. I can see the detail of what needs to change. I've got all the tools on not only the holistic side and the emotional side, but the practical side to actually help them to move forward. And it doesn't have to be business women. It's any women or men for that matter, that use the same tools but just in different ways. So that's taken me to where I am now, which is, and I'm absolutely loving what I do. And it's led me into being able to live a lifestyle out in the bush, because I'm on 25 acres out in the country, and I work like this. And now I've got clients in London and everywhere. So it's a fantastic. It's been well planned. Actions taken. Yeah, so
let me
where I
take
am
you.
at the moment.
Okay, that's awesome. And you know, you've learned a lot through that experience. Just going back to that experience, knowing what you know now, and all the holistic and healing that has gone on since then. You know, if you had kind of tips for that younger self back then, who was going through a hard time, and you know, you did kind of suffer with depression and burnout back then. You know, what kind of tips would you be able to kind of look back on and think, if only I did this, you know, I could do that much sooner? Or, you know, what advice would you be giving yourself or someone in your position right now who was back then?
Idealistically, I would have told myself to actually listen to myself, the inner self, more openly. I don't know if it would have been possible, because it was such a journey of trust to actually get to trust that part of myself. But for people who are in that position, I would very much say ask for help. Trust that you're asking for help and the right people will turn up. You don't have to do it alone. I always thought I had to do everything alone, because, you know, I was independent, strong woman. So I didn't need anybody. Well, it's not about needing somebody, but it is about actually finding someone who might be able to make the journey a lot quicker and easier for you.
Yeah, that's some good advice. I think it's hard sometimes. It's hard to know that you even need help, isn't it? Because sometimes you have to get past the point of needing help to go and seek it, especially if you're not that, you're not that confident, or you've been brought up to not show signs of weaknesses or not, not having strength of that kind of nature. Sometimes it gets past the point and you have to kind of seek help regardless of whether you want to.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And if it gets to that point, there's people think, it's all too big, it's all too much, and so they tend to, if they can't find the help, they shut down and back out of life and the challenges of life and things like that. And I always say, look, there is a sign there somewhere telling you where to go and what to do in regards to getting help. It's just the openness of actually taking that step forward.
Yeah.
And only they can do it. Like, it's only they can actually choose to make that step forward into asking for help or signing up for some sort of a course that really pulls them in. That might be their starting point. Yeah. So it's there's always a way. There is always a way to find that part of yourself that really does know, that true self that is vibrant and powerful. It's always there. If you don't put too many locks on the doors, it will show you the way.
So, of all the tools that you've learned along the way, is there any particular one for you that stood out as being the one that really engaged you into doing what you're doing right now? Is there anything in particular that you can pinpoint it to?
It was probably, I was very lucky when I did my coach training course. It was done, I did it through a company that specialized in emotional mastery, which was perfect for me because I'm an emotional empath. So I very much needed to incorporate my emotions in my growth. It was no good doing a coaching program that was all mentally based and action based. That was included in it, but I had to have the emotional content. So to me, emotional mastery itself is an absolute key for everybody if they really want to be the best that they can be. One of the key things for me was my self-worth, and finding a way to see it the lack of self-worth in a way that was actually productive, and how to use it in a way that supported me. I didn't push against it. So I had to actually incorporate it into a normal part of who I was. And part of that was learning that the worth was gained through my commitment to what I was doing, and actioning that commitment to add value to not only what I was doing, but to myself. And that built my self-worth over the years to become more and more confident. Now, self-worth isn't ever going to be like 100%. That would be abnormal. But it can be used. Self-worth is one of those characteristics that can be used to it activates creativity and the dedication to achieving. So people who with low self-worth can be some of the hardest workers out there. So they put in the work and the commitment. And I find that is a really key thing that turns around a lot of people in regards to how they look at that. And it certainly did for me.
Awesome. And that took you from the burnout, the depression, and the kind of the stresses, the overwhelm you were going through in the businesses to doing what you do now, which is to empower other women, isn't it? You empower other women to use various tools and techniques to be able to do this themselves with a little help from a friend.
Exactly.
And because you've been through that process, that journey, it enables you to be completely empathic, to understand what they're going through, and to be able to then teach them the tools that they need to be able to do this themselves. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about the technique that you learned and how you empower women to use that.
Sure. The actual technique actually revolves around incorporating all of the shadow side of ourselves, so the parts or the emotions that we judge, whether it be anger or anxiety or all of those things. The technique involves being able to see them and draw them in on an emotional level and actually honor them for what they are, honor the fact that they are there to teach us something. And then once they've actually breathed that in and incorporated, I take them on a journey of actually seeing what the positive tool is that it's giving them. So for anger is very action based, and it leads into passion and creativity. So I take them on that internal journey so they can actually feel it. And when you feel something, it actually incorporates into your wholeness very, very deeply. It can never be unfelt. So when you feel something like that, then you can access it at any point to use it in a very directive and constructive way. So I mean, a lot of women don't like to be angry, and that judgment is not allowing them to fully use the energy that is incorporated in passion and productivity, because if they cut off the anger, which is underneath the passion, then they're not using all of their energy. So the techniques that I use are very individualized with every person depending on their needs. It is feeling-based, mentally incorporated, and physically incorporating all of those aspects. So what they're doing is actually regaining all of the life force energy that they've pushed aside by judging that shadow part. So once they do that, they start to feel more alive and vibrant and able to look at life in quite different ways, and not have the old judgments and beliefs actually feel so heavy. They lighten and they start to fall away quite easily. So it's an exciting journey. I get very excited about it every time I do it with somebody. And my 12-week program is one of the key ones that I love doing, because it's so in depth and it's such massive change for people that, I get very excited every time I got someone coming in to do that, and I watch their changes.
So the 12-week program is done individually with every person, right? It's not like you're in a group environment. It's done specifically tailored. Each one's tailored to the individual, is it?
That's correct. Yes, I don't have a real formal structure around it because it's everyone's an individual, obviously, and they all, how to get to their best self is always an individual journey. And that's what I love about it, is the fact that every time I do it, it's different, and the results are different depending on what the people want.
Yeah, because everyone's got a different baseline of where they're starting from in terms of their beliefs and the values that they hold, and kind of those kind of discourses that are passed down from generation to generation about what you can be or what you can't be and what you should be and shouldn't be. So everybody has that different baseline of where they're starting from, don't they? And for some, I guess it's a struggle to be able to connect and be able to be okay expressing their emotions, because they've been taught to repress them and to not kind of talk about negative stuff going on. So how I guess it's easier with the people that are more open and transparent and willing and able to do that. But what about the people that are listening, for example, or watching here or watching after the broadcast, who think, do you know, I wouldn't know where to start in terms of talking about how I feel, because it just makes me upset every time I think about it.
Yeah, and that's probably the majority of people. So the way I work with people who are so overwhelmed with the emotional content is I start where they want to start. So it'll be basically we talk about what they want. And what's held them back from getting that. And then we just basically pull it apart a bit by bit until we get the result that they want. So it doesn't actually doesn't mean they have to have emotional expression during what how we transform. It's slight connection with it is fine, but you don't actually have to be crying your eyes out or anything like that to actually integrate something. And I think that's one of the fallacies of emotional work, is that you have to re-feel the trauma of something, and you don't have to. And the way I work is energetically I can actually feel that trauma for them and lead them through it without them having to relive it and express it, because no one needs to relive anything that they don't want to. It's very much about giving them a far easier journey than any reliving of emotional trauma that's not required. And, you know, sometimes you don't even need to know what the trauma is about. Like, you don't actually need to even know. It's the pattern that's been activated by it that will be changing, and the integration of it. So, there's always a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people just feel it, but they don't really need to talk about it. They just want to deal with it without having to consciously talk about it. Exactly. And having the tools to be able to, techniques to be able to do that is kind of what a lot of people need, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, you know, the way that I teach people to do this, and I teach them in a way that they can take it home and use it over and over again. And I always record my sessions with people so they can take them away and use, like, it incorporates the meditations I take them through and the techniques I take them through, so they can reuse it so that it becomes a normal thing that they can do from day to day. And it was only the other day, like, people think quite often that they have to get to a point where they don't actually feel any of that shadow stuff or the not so nice stuff. It's not actually about not feeling it anymore. It's about being able to move through it very quickly and easily, getting the wisdom from it, and putting some sort of change or action in place that it's showing them that something is not in congruence. So those are the tools that everyone will get in regards to living a life that is congruent and brings out their best self. Which allows them to have the passion and purpose and the joy that we all crave, But it also makes the sadness and the anger and everything not so scary, and usable tools along the way, and good. They're guideposts as to whether they're on track or not.
Absolutely. Sounds an awesome method. It sounds great that you as well, that you've kind of come through all that and living life your way out there in the sticks, in the beauty of the world, and still being able to connect with people all over the world. And that in itself is it's an incredible journey in terms of you planning and deciding what you wanted in your life, and going for it and making it happen, and now being able to help so many other people to make it, make it happen for themselves. That's
exactly.
awesome.
And it's only been in the last probably 12 months that I've become really, really clear in how, and that's when this Institute of Empathic Leadership started to develop, because I got really clear on what my niche was in regards to what part of me is the part that will best be able to help other people. And, that's been a journey in itself. And I think everybody has to go through a journey to get really, really clear on their niche. And I think the niche changes as we change. But where I'm at now, I'm pretty sure this is where I'm going to be staying in regards to what I do, because it just feels so easy to me, and it just feels so exciting. And I used to hate doing marketing side of things and things like that, but now it's like I want to do it because I want to actually reach the people that need my help. And so it's always an ongoing journey, but at least it can be fun most of the time. There's always a bit of stress along the way.
Well, I think it comes with the territory, and I think the thing is sometimes it does have to get a little bit worse than it gets better for everyone, in terms of we avoid a lot of things in life, and there's good reason for that. We're not ready to deal with it, but I think as soon as we're ready to connect with it, sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get over those first hurdles in terms of embarking on anything new. Even if you're starting a new business, the challenges are huge for someone to do that. But if you're also working personally on yourself, that there's extra challenges of having to deal with that. But if you've got someone like you, Liana, I think it kind of makes the job a whole bunch easier, because it means that you've got someone supporting you the whole way through it. So this
and one of those things one of the things that I do to help people in that support is I've got an online program, which is the Introduction to Emotional Mastery, and that's actually all the things that I've talked about this morning. It puts it into a package where people can understand it and experience it. And it's a starting point of seeing things completely differently. So that's a very powerful online program that I'm actually starting soon. I think it's the 6th of August. I think it starts. So that in itself is a great starting point for people if they have never done this sort of work before, or they feel like it might be a little bit intimidating. They get to do that and actually realize that it's not so scary after all.
Absolutely. So let's just be clear. This is not just for business women. This is for fellas too. This is for people who aren't in business. Anyone can basically access your courses and your programs, can't they?
They can. Anyone at all. Yes. It's the Introduction to Empathic Leadership. So far, it's been all women, but I would love to have men on board as well, and just mix it up a bit. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm going to put all the links to where people can find you, including your Facebook group. You've got a Facebook group, Facebook page. You've got a website, and on your website, you've got lots of events and programs going on in terms of where people can get hold of you and look into this a bit more detail, whether they're on the fringes or whether they're actually, ready to give it a go. And also you're doing some special today in terms of where people can come and have a coaching session with you, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
I'll put that on the link as well. So if people want to just connect with you in a little bit more detail and find some more information out about that, how you may be able to help them. So I thank you so much today, Liana, for coming on and sharing your story, because I think it's important that you know, we don't just always see where people are and how well they're doing. We also see kind of the sometimes very difficult and challenging journeys they've took to get to where they are. And, you know, without that, you may not be where you are today, right? You may still be in the tourist industry.
I can guarantee without that the hiccups along the way, I would be in a very different place in life and probably not such a great place. So, yeah. It's all
may
good.
still be on that big field with all those cattle and everything. You never know.
Definitely.
Hey, well, you know what? You have a good day. And I'm just going to finish off here and I'll talk to you again in the green room. Just hang about for me, would you?
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Talk to you again in a few minutes. So, yeah, thanks again to my guest, Liana Allison, today for sharing her journey and to being open and frank about how, you know, the thing that we need most usually when we're in a dire strait is to ask for help. And I know it's difficult for a lot of us to do that. And sometimes we suffer in silence. But I think, you know, even if it's just telling a good mate, sibling, or, you know, whoever, you know, even talking to somebody who's a complete stranger, like someone like Liana or myself, you know, where you can access coaches, therapists who are not going to be judgmental, or you can access their services very easily without having to even talk too much about what's going on with the kind of tools and techniques that we use. So, you know, thank you again. If you do want to comment below on the broadcast, please do so. If you want to come in Cherry Hive, you're very welcome. And I will put Liana's links and everything up afterwards so you can find a way to contact her some way or another. So I'll be back tomorrow talking to another special guest, Annette Densham, about PR and how you can create great stories to leverage your business. And she helps women. I think she helps men too. In fact, I know she does because she helps my buddy Paul. She's helping him to create some great stories in his business. So yeah, we'll be talking to Annette tomorrow, same time, 10 o'clock. Until then, bye-bye.